good evening to all. And our today's topic is about the testing of ferrous cement. This is a very vital and very important subject, I would say, regarding ferrous cement technology. Uh, for any technology, certainly when we go for adopting it, construction part, and then later on its maintenance. So before that, we have to do all kind of testing to ascertain the its properties, its strength, and to get ourselves convinced about its safety. So for all these purposes, the basic work needed is in the academic research rather than on practical. So unless we get that backbone, we cannot go further and be confident for ourselves for any type of construction. So the Dr. Nuzula Kulkarni is working particularly in this ferrous cement subject since last 10 years. So without wasting much time, I would invite Mrs. Nuzula Kulkarni to start her presentation. I think considering the topic and its vastness, we will allow her to give her presentation maybe say 30 minutes, and then later on we will have the discussions.
I hope my presentation is visible to you. So here I'm presenting here with the work done by my colleagues and my students for last few years. And we initially started with the testing of ferrocement for water tanks and some other components. And thereon we explored different ways of testing it and how we can improve the properties of ferrocement. So this is how the journey of ferrocement was for us as a material which is to be established. So the entire efforts were towards attaining the better properties of ferrocement and altering the methods of testing. So you will find here in my presentation that the conventional testing we had done in the earlier phase, and later on as we changed upon our testing methods, those methods also I would like to present it here. And as we explored the ways of testing it, we felt that we were confident about it that ferrocement is showing better properties if we treat that material in a different treatment. So this is how we found out. And almost it's a group of ferrocement researchers who are working. To name the few: Dr. Darshan Gaidankar, Dr. Amrut Joshi, Dr. Purandare, Dr. Pimplikar, Professor Minde, and Suman Shinde. They constitute the ferrocement group who are researching on this material and various aspects of material. Uh, because of the paucity of the time, I am splitting this presentation into two parts. Today, I am speaking only for the fundamental properties of the ferrocement, where we are not exactly treating ferrocement as RCC. We are looking after what are the requirements for constitutive materials,
आप बोल भी सकते हो, आप ये वीडियो भी सकते हो.
design of mortar mix, tensile capacity in direct tension as well as hook tension, compression capacity in confined concrete and unconfined concrete, and behavior under load for flexure, shear, etc. Here also I am stopping up to shear because bond, etc. I will cover it in the second part because of the paucity of the time. So motivation was when we thought about the ferrocement, what are the permissible stresses that we should consider when we take up any design problem. So there we were not able to get any correct solution, correct comment from ACI or any other books, say Naman's book or Balaguru sir's book. So we tried to find it out by way of experimentation and by simulation, what can be the permissible stresses, what can be the ultimate stresses at different loading patterns for the ferrocement. So this was actually the motivation, and we tried to utilize the ferrocement as a structural unit, understanding its various load carrying capacities for different loading conditions, and what way we can utilize this material properties of the ferrocement. That was the motivation. And very first in the beginning, we felt that it is definitely behaving in a different way than RCC, because by definition itself, ferrocement is a thin walled member maybe from 18 to 50 maximum, that is the thickness. And it has to be made using the rich cement mortar. So that mortar and its mix design is also a very important part, which plays important role in imparting the material properties to the ferrocement. Then comes the constituent material, steel mesh that we use, and the chicken mesh. Because the steel mesh which is used is spaced apart with continuous fiber wires, and they are very closely spaced, they impart a different property that is not seen in RCC. So it is a typical behavior. That's what we found out because of the presence of the jali or mesh, high steel jali or high strength meshes can also be used. So that part is again still there, which needs to be explored if we use high strength reinforcement wires, weld meshes. So that will definitely improve the entire property of ferrocement. This is what we felt that it is, that's why behaving in a different way than RCC. And then once we establish the properties for the ferrocement, why can't we use it as a structural element? That was the question, and we started chasing this philosophy of using the ferrocement because it was exhibiting very good strength in tension as well as flexure, and also in blast and impact. So that's why we are underutilizing the strength of ferrocement. That was the question, and we tried to establish the material properties so that at least we can comment on the strength of ferrocement for various loading conditions. And then knowing that whether we can use it as structural members. So that was the question. So in the initial phase, we also started experimenting with the ferrocement structural members, which are shown here, like beam, which is a U beam, and then along with the PCC and some hanger reinforcement, we can use this. And also the slabs, ferrocement slabs, which are having very thin ribs. Here you can see in the picture. Hollow columns also we can construct out of ferrocement. And just like we arrange the jigsaw puzzle, we can use these components at the site, and we can erect the structure within some limits of vertical dimension. So this is just a typical example where we can use the structural components made out of ferrocement, and we can erect the structure. Limitation because of the ACI not accepting the design values or the ultimate tensile values, ultimate stresses. So that was the motivation, and we tried to use this cement capacities for ferrocement being used as a structural component. Next slide, please. And here the intention started because of this small structure which is seen in the photographs. Next.
Yes, please.
So here you will see that we are erecting these members, columns, beams, slabs, all made up of ferrocement. These columns are hollow columns, and we can really erect the structure with small hydra. So there is no much heavy type of equipment required for carrying out the installation of these projects. So that was also one of the advantage. Next slide, please. Almost in few days, you can complete all types of structures like this using ferrocement components. So that become a motivation. But what was required for arriving at this stage was, what are the capacities of ferrocement as a structural member? So that was the point we chased. Next, please. You will see here in two ways: complete ferrocement structure and LGS plus ferrocement panel units. This is another type of structure where a loading pattern will be different. So both are possible using the ferrocement. Next, please. So basically, we will start with the constituent materials, and since we all know that mixed design of the mortar will have a major impact on what will be the strength of the ferrocement. So mixed design was important. River sand is almost we are not allowed to use. That's why we tried with crushed sand. And to reduce the portion of cement, we have also used the fly ash, so that we achieve the overall economy while actually using the ferrocement materials. So it was advised to carry out the mixed design of a mortar, which will require the workability suitable as self-compacting mortar. So that's how workability needs to be maintained. So all the efforts which will give us that kind of self-compacting workability was required so that we can completely fill the mold and there are no voids. There is good finish for the mold. And if high strength mortar is used, it was possible to raise the tensile load carrying capacity of the ferrocement in axial tension as well as in fracture because the compressive strength of mortar itself is higher. Along with that, if we can combine the steel also as a high strength steel, then together that composite can also increase the capacity of ferrocement. So high strength mortar and high strength steel. So there is still need of the research to be done if high strength steel can be used for the meshes. And also there is one more factor, that is temperature during the mixing, which will have a good impact over this mix design and actual strength achieved for the mortar. And the water cement ratio should be carefully designed. And we had a deliberation with Mr. Ujjwal Kunte for a long period of time. We had so many iterations using the mixed designs, different constituent materials, and what was suggested and what was evident from the observations, which were the outcome of lot of experimentation only for the mixed design of mortar for ferrocement. It came out to be something like this. So when we conducted the experiments for the mixed design and the strength which was given by the perfect mixed design for the ferrocement using the crushed sand and also fly ash, cement to crushed sand can be used in the proportion of almost 1 is to 2.5 to 1 is to 5, depending upon what is the available constituent material nearby you. So the range was seen to be 1.25, 1.2, 1 is to 2.5 to 1 is to 5. Water cement ratio that was optimal for the free flowing concrete and self compacting type of concrete, compacting type of mortar, it came to be 0.38 to 0.45. Along with that, you can also combine various chemicals which are required for improving the workability, depending upon what exactly is the impact of that chemical which is used for improving the workability. So that also needs to be taken into consideration while doing the mixed design. And when the fly ash was replaced by some portion of the cement, it indicates that up to 35% of cement can be replaced by fly ash without affecting the compressive strength. So that much of economy can be achieved if we replace some portion of cement by fly ash. Also, we were able to control the temperature at the time of mixing. Depending upon the source of the crushed sand, mix design can vary, and every time whenever you are mixing the mortar, the mix design has to be different because of the sources of the constituent materials will have that impact. So fly ash replacement will save the consumption of cement and thereby having a good impact over overall cost of the construction. So that was impact about the water cement ratio, fly ash replacement, and the workability in totality. So this was the graphical representation. You will see that water cement ratio 0.38 to 0.45, somewhere in between that range you can always position the water cement ratio so as to have maximum properties for the ferro cement. Next slide please. Now when we actually cast the ferro cement, mesh comes the next constituent material. Now mesh, when we are keeping one mesh over the other, they have to be separated by the spacers so that whatever is our cover for those meshes, that is maintained, as well as the distance between the two consecutive meshes is also maintained. So specific spacers are to be designed and which have to be fixed between the two layers of the jalis. So the special spacers were designed and used to maintain the accuracy, dimensional accuracy of the jali. Now, when we compare the ferrocement as a casting and ferrocement as a press plastered component, sorry for using this word hand plastering, but my meaning is when it is used as a pressed plastering, mortaring. The two different entities are, if ferrocement is to be designed as a structural element, then physical as well as the material qualities have to be consistent and reliable in that entire cast element. So somewhere there has to be need of standardization. Now, what is that need of standardization? All the time we must get whatever desired strength is there. So that's why at every level, from constituent to mixing to the casting, there should be a process which is standardized. So that will ensure whatever are our design parameters for that ferrocement component. So first requirement was total encapsulation of the steel meshes as well as full consolidation of thin section of the member, so that jali and mortar completely behave as a composite material without having any voids or without having seeing any separation of jali and the mortar. So total encapsulation must be ensured, and that can be possible only by strict quality control of the casting. Maximum compressive strength is possible with the manual plastering up to almost 25 MPa. That also we observed in the laboratory, and we obtained that strength by manual plastering of the component. From the both faces, it was plastered, and we call it in regional language chapne. So this is how we got the strength of 25 MPa. Uh, Due to this, but always achieving that strength was not possible because we do it manually. So this is posing some uncertainty for the test. This is actually a detrimental to the selection of the standard stress value. You cannot always say that this is the value which will be reached by any component which has been uh, casted by manual plastering. So that was the problem, and maybe that was one of the reason why ACI committee did not recommend any design stress values. So that was the point where we started finding out the answer to this question. Next slide, please. Now, when we started with the ferrocement casting with strict quality control, execution of high quality of casting of the ferrocement, it is necessary to observe several material and construction parameters. And many of the literatures, they give all these values. Many authors have already done that work, and they have given their comments. These have been recommended from large body of the research which are being pointing out to the best practices all over the world. But still, various recommendations prescribed under the following categories are material specification and its standardization, physical dimensioning and its standardization, design values, and accuracy of those design values, because we have standardized practice for material specification and physical dimensioning. So this was the need of the hour, and that's what we tried to do it in our experimentation. Next slide, please. So in the material specification, as I already said, it was a mortar mix. Sand has to be of the grading which does not have too many fines in its proportion as a particle size. The best results that we obtained were from grade 2 distribution of the fines. So they were able to give us a better proportioning for the mortar mix. Large portion of the particle fines need more water to obtain the required viscosity. So this has to be borne in mind while using the large portion of the particles. So sieve analysis has to be monitored whenever whatever fines you are using. So sieve analysis and its impact must be considered while doing the mix of the mortar. In order to get M35 as a final compressive strength, because minimum we start with M30, M35 for ferrocement. the preferred portion of the cement to sand ratio is somewhere between 1 is to 2.75 to 1 is to 3. This is the portion and the sand of grade 2, a good surface finish which can be obtained by this proportioning of sand and cement. To get the viscosity, 0.35 to 0.45 water to cement ratio, and more fluid mix can be made with suitable use of any additive, large number of additives which are available in the market with different properties. They may be enhancing some of the properties, some are retarders also, but sometimes they can be useful in giving some additional strength characteristics, which may be useful for early demolding of the ferrocement mold. So, instructions regarding the use of such chemicals should be properly followed. This is what we felt whenever we use those chemicals for casting the ferrocement components. So, if at all anywhere we go wrong, the results were also wrong. So, at that point also it was required to be very cautious while using any chemicals, maybe retarders, maybe workability enhancers or anything. Then next constituent comes the mesh. Large varieties of meshes are available and are being used all over by many practitioners. Square welded mesh is most popular one, expanded metal mesh, hexagonal wire mesh or chicken mesh, which is used for many of the hand plastered elements where it can arrest the crack, and square woven mesh. So far, all the practitioners, they have used mild steel as the mesh. We are looking forward to going for high strength mesh. Mortar of M30 onwards and steel of 250 MPa onwards, say up to 350, will definitely improve ferrocement. That is what we feel from whatever study we have done so far. Next, please. Uh, Suitability of square welded mesh, expanded welded mesh. I think all of you have been working into this for pretty long years, and you know that which mesh is suitable for what kind of ferrocement structure. So I would just say that for a precast structural element of ferrocement, weld mesh is very useful, while expanded metal mesh is not really suitable and not recommended because of its nature, because it will not be contributing into the load transfer mechanism as the load is being applied. Next, please. Hexagonal wire mesh or chicken mesh. In case of woven mesh condition, uh, it is still worse because wire diameter is about 0.5 millimeter, and when the tension is applied to the wire, it has a tendency to open up at the every location at which the woven cross wire will intersect with each other. So this is how it will not really contribute into taking the tension. So that's why chicken mesh can be only useful for arresting the crack mechanism. So only for that purpose chicken mesh can be used. When such mesh is embedded in the mortar, it cannot generate full tensile force in the wire. So in other words, we can say we will not count chicken mesh to be contributing in the tensile strength of the ferrocement. This reflects into the lesser tensile strength, capacity generation as compared to the square weld mesh. While square weld mesh, all the wires which are in one direction will contribute into the tension capacity in that direction for the ferrocement component. Next, please. Now, the thickness of the cast sections being very small, in which two or more mesh layers are placed. Due to the structural requirements, it is necessary to keep them in correct position in cross section. In order to achieve this positional accuracy, it is necessary to have cages of skeletal steel of suitable diameter. It also helps in ensuring the mortar impregnation of the entire wire mesh without leaving any void. The cross-sectional area of the skeletal steel enhances the shear capacity as well because of the close spacing and the interaction between the two consecutive jalis or meshes which are placed together. So percentage of steel in the cross section designated in terms of say volume fraction play not much role in generation of tensile strength in the mortar that was observed during the experimentation. Though ACI code recommends 1.8 to 2% of the reinforcement to be used, it is observed that minimum volume fraction should not be less than 1.5% to obtain the good results. So in case of areas where the compressive stresses are predominant, percentage can be even lesser than 1.5, because anyway steel will not be, mortar will be contributing into the compression resistance. So only if the component is resisting compression, there we can reduce the volume fraction of this reinforcement less than 1.5%. Next, please. Now here we started thinking about the philosophy, what exactly happens when we are sandwiching the jali between the mortar, which is of high strength. So when the wire encompassed with the high strength mortar in one direction or in two direction as shown in this figure, uh, our philosophy, what we are saying, that the area which is very adjacent to the reinforcement, it actually participates into the tension carrying capacity. And how much is that area that contributes into tension carrying capacity? It is almost equal to 5 millimeters for a jali diameter of 1.6 1.4 mm diameter. So we call this entire circular zone, which is surrounding the reinforcement, we call it as zone of influence or radius of influence, because that zone is participating in imparting the tensile capacity to the component. So based on this philosophy, we worked out the further testing, and also we simulated it using the finite element analysis, and there also we can verify it and validate that yes, there is some zone which is adjacent to the jali which contributes into the tensile load carrying capacity. Though we say that mortar takes compression and steel takes tension, but some part of mortar is also useful in taking the tensile force. Now, because this jali is very closely spaced, 15 mm by 15 mm or 20 mm by 20 mm, we can really bring about this zone of influence together with each other, so that entire plate, entire plank can be very solid and it can contribute completely into the tension. So that was the entire philosophy. 5 millimeters from this side, 5 millimeters from this side, the other side. So that becomes 10 millimeters. If we bring the center to center distance of jali together, it will be more strong. This is what we observed during our experimentation. Next, please. The way we stack these jalis, either we can stagger it or we can keep it exactly one over the other. So what happens when we keep it exactly over the others? So based upon our philosophy that we state that there is radius of influence. So when we keep one jali over the other jali exactly above that, there will be some voids here which will not be really contributing into that tension carrying capacity or compression carrying capacity. So what we can do, we can stagger, and in that case, if we stagger the element jalis, then we can overlap these influence areas, so that entirely we can bring about the section, cross section into the load carrying zone. That will be depicted in the next slide. So here you will see, if you stagger the jalis, you can stagger this zone of influence also. So this becomes a close network, close knit area, cross section, where entire composite of steel and mortar will be useful in taking that load. So whether this philosophy works or not, this is what we tried in our testing, and what we got, we will see in the next thing. The next part again is physical dimensioning. From one earlier one, we took it for the constituent materials and their uh, quality, and how we should maintain the quality for the constituent material that we have seen. Now physical dimensioning, one of the first issue of the diameter of wire in the mesh, ACI code recommends almost 0.5 millimeter diameter to 1.5 millimeter diameter. It is not possible to handle and place the wire with the diameter less than 1 millimeter. As such, the mesh tends not to hold the shape and is very difficult to keep it in correct position. It also bulges during the concreting, and because it is very light in weight, it will bulge sometimes. So chicken mesh wires are of very small diameters. However, chicken meshes are necessary when the section is plastered and not cast. We can completely eliminate chicken mesh if you are actually casting the component. So in structural use of ferro cement, hand plastering is not recommended. Chicken mesh is necessary where hand plastering is to be done, and it is difficult to make the mortar to stay at its place unless the mesh is very small dimension. So recommended mesh opening between the cross wires 15 mm to 25 mm is what is recommended. More than that, it will not be giving good properties. That's what is seen. 15 mm gives actually optimal properties, and as you go away from 15 mm, the properties will start reducing as far as tensile capacity is considered. So maximum size of particle for sand to be used for the mortar should be 2.5 millimeters, and spacing should be preferably for the jali 15 mm center to center. Maybe mild steel, and some of the jalis that we have tested, we are still not coming up with the results that is for high strength jalis. This is also helping providing the required volume fraction of the steel in the section. Another advantage when we use smaller mesh openings is that more than almost 85% of the mortar falls under the radius of influence. Thereby, it is directly improving the cross-sectional area coming under tensile behavior, also in shear behavior, giving you the larger capacity of the load in tension as well as in plane shear. So this was observed in the experiments that we conducted, and those were typical experiments which were conducted by performing tensile test and flexural test. Now, theoretically, when we see the area around the wire is directly under tensile stress to the tune of 5 millimeters, which is the radius of influence. So grid of 15 by 15 of has crossing of cylindrical areas of the influence 5 millimeters from this side, 5 millimeters from this other side, almost 11 millimeters, including the diameter of mesh. So that is almost about 11%. So experiments have been done to place the meshes staggering each other on the, and cover is left out of the area of the tensile influence. Thus, it is increasing the participation of into entire load carrying mechanism. So this is how we can place or stagger the meshes depending upon what is our desired composition of the section, and thereby maintaining as well the volume fraction of the reinforcement to be provided. So these things can be designed, and the working can be done, and then only the casting can be done. Next, please. I will skip this because these layers I will show it on the diagrams itself. Let's go to the next one. Design stress value was the third parameter. As mentioned before, ACI does not recommend any stress values in tension, bending or shear. So approach due to the quality control issues of handmade products, some authors, they recommend only casting of the elements in order to get the quality control or to avoid quality assurance issues and to get the predictable stress values in the cast elements. So the major departure from the construction method adopted since the inception of the ferro cement, so almost 50 years back, it has to be appreciated that no structure can allow design without the predictable product quality and its allowable stress values. So experimental work to determine the values of tension was done traditionally with mortar prism with the steel wires tested in axial tension. Value was taken as possible tensile stress in the ferrocement and factor of safety of up to 3, 4, 5 was considered in the design process. So from the experiments carried out by various authors, similar value was observed for the axial tensions, which was about 14 MPa for steel, used was 250 MPa yield stress, and value of the ferrocement stress was 14 MPa. But some steel, however, generating almost 24 MPa tensile stress at first crack in hoop tension or in bending, that was also observed. So we can raise the bar from 14 MPa to 24 MPa by adopting few methods where we can actually control various processes. So increase from 14 to 24 or say 25 is pretty good improvement in the property. That's what we can say. Next, please. What the authors they are suggesting, say Anthony Norman, he gives the tensile stress almost half the stress observed in bending condition. This works out to be a value for axial tension about say 12 MPa because we are considering ultimate tensile strength as 24 MPa as given by Anthony Norman. So the tensile stress to be taken for the design purpose is half of it. Shear stress, what he suggests is 1/3 of the stress obtained in bending. So that works out to be just 8 MPa. These are the values offered and available in the text from various texts conducted by Balaguru Shah as well as Anthony Norman. They would be safe average for test by many other researchers, those who have given it. It is also reported that higher values of bending tension can be observed reaching up to almost 30 to 35 MPa when we use high tensile steel wires and we use the mortar of 30 MPa plus capacity. So we are reaching from the elementary values which are available in the books from 24 to 35. Next, please. What exactly happens when we test it for various loading conditions? Say if it is in pure tension. Earlier in our first phase, we tested some tension samples with dumbbell shaped specimens, but then we changed our pattern. So what exactly happens? We tried to find out the philosophy behind it. So if this is the jali which is embedded into the matrix and the direct tensile force is applied. So only the steel which is in the direction of loading that plays role in taking the tensile load. The jali or the reinforcement which is in the transfer direction does not contribute in this tensile testing, tensile capacity for the ferrocement. Next one, please. Typical load elongation curve given by ferrocement, we all know that it is exhibiting almost strength up to 25. But experimentally, we can go even beyond that. This is what is emphasized here. After conducting lot many experiments, 25 will be, we can say, this is the minimum value of strength which we can observe. We can still go ahead of 25 Newton per mm square. Next, please. Now, direct tension was only one way of testing the tension. There is also hoop tension because ferrocement is many times used for water tanks also. So, what way also we can say that by virtue of the shape of the curvature, it imparts that strength. So, that is also seen in curved forms of the ferrocement. And we can test it in the hoop tension as well. And when we test in hoop tension, all the jali transverse as well as longitudinal, they come into picture and they exhibit the tension tensile zone equally distributed in both the directions of the jali. So this is more useful way of loading and more useful way of utilizing the capacity of ferrocement to its fullest extent. Next, please. We could see that behavior in hoop tension. What we did, we casted the cylinders, PCC cylinders, and which were encompassed, which were encased with the ferrocement jacket, and then we tested it for hoop tension. Compression was applied to the cylinder, and we could find that the capacity of the PCC, which was casted in the form of cylinder, that was enhanced by multi-folds because it was a uh, confined compression for the concrete, and the force which was generated in the ferrocement, that was a hoop tension, and we could get lot of hoop tensile capacity when we tested it in hoop tension, and it was more than 24 Newton per mm square, and with M30 grade of mortar for which was used for the jacketing, it reached almost up to 32 Newton per mm square when we tested it in hoop tension. So almost we can use the non-linear capacity of the reinforcement when we test it in hoop tension as well. So there is question here for me as an academician. So just like we use limit state method and we utilize some portion of steel in non-linear zone also. So when we load the ferrocement in its hoop tension way, maybe we will be able to load it in its non-linear zone as well and get that enhanced strength of the ferrocement. So that is possible if we load it in hoop tension. Next, please. We tested it with the simulation as well, and this shows the cylinder, which was a PCC cylinder 150 by 300 and the ferrocement jacketing, and we compressed it under the universal testing machine, and you will see here that the stress is very uniform here. That's why I say that steel jali works in both the directions, x and y direction, when you use it in confined way. So in both the direction it is useful. So hoop tension distribution is very uniform when we use it as hoop tension applied to the ferrocement jacketing done here. And this is optimal utilization of the capacity of the ferrocement. Next, please. Are we going backwards? Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So when we load it in direct tension, only these two zones, they are participating in the tension, while the entire next one, when we load it in hoop tension, we get entire capacity, entire surface of the ferrocement in hoop tension. Now, how to test it instead of dumbbell shaped specimen? How to test the plate in tension? So we made two slabs like this. We actually pasted them. We arranged the setup as shown in this figure here. We bolted it with two steel plates, and we could grip it into the two crosshairs of universal testing machine, and these two plates were glued together. One plate was having higher thickness than the other plate, so that the plate with the smaller thickness will undergo in complete tension. And this is how we tested this plate for direct tension. And we could find that after 28 days of the curing, we got the tensile strength of 16 MPa. There was no failure at the joints or at the crossheads. It was complete tension failure, which was ensured by utilizing this test setup. Next, please. And this was conforming to what the tests were done by Naman. and we could get similar kind of results when directly the plate was tested. Now the compression test, direct compression test of ferrocement. For direct compression, the challenge was if we load the specimen in direct compression under the two crossheads, there was possibility that near the crossheads it will get crushed. So what we did, we increased the cross section of the specimen at the two crossheads so that it will not fail at the crossheads, bottom as well as top. And there was a zone of failure which was induced here. You can see here the thickness of the middle portion is the actual thickness of 18 millimeters of ferrocement, and edges were made thicker than the central portion, so that the zone of failure was introduced in the central portion. And this is how the compression, direct compression was tested, and we tested the wall panel unit in direct compression if at all it is to be used as compression element. Next please. And we got the direct compression capacity as almost 367 kilonewton. And if we apply the theory to the loading condition and the end conditions constraints that we apply to this column, we can find out that Euler's load, if we consider both the ends hinged, it comes out almost as 200 kilonewtons. And if we consider both the ends fixed, it comes out to be almost 300 kilonewtons. But actual test load that we got was 372 kilonewtons. And what was the observation here? L by D ratio for a single stiffness is 16 for this particular specimen that we tested. And for the L by D ratio of 16, when we get the actual compression testing load as 372 kilonewtons, the observation was stiffener act as a compression element along with the 20 mm thickness plate of the ferrocement. Stiffness is restrained in both the directions of the plate. So X and Y, both the directions, they provide the restraint for this buckling of the panel. So it is not exactly a single column which is under the direct compression, but there is two-way compression, two-way buckling action which is introduced into this. So actual failure load is indicative of this kind of behavior if the plates are to be used as compression elements. So this was the observation when we tested the ferrocement plates under compression. Next please. In case of bending, we tested the units under 4-point loading or 2-point loading, pure bending we can say. And when we tested it in 2-point loading slabs, the various thicknesses and various percentages of steel provided by number of jalis, they were tested. And we have ensured that just like beam, there is neutral axis, and above the neutral axis there is compression zone and there is tension zone below the neutral axis. We tried to place the reinforcement jali, one jali in compression zone, one jali in tension zone. There is no jali at the neutral axis. So this is how the specimens were casted, and we tested it in bending. Next please. This was the test setup, and you can see here the flexural cracks which originate from the tension zone, and the setup is for pure bending without introducing the shear zone. Next please. And when we subject it to the flexure, it's almost like a two-way slab. It behaves in a two-way slab, and reinforcement is completely contributing into the flexure in both the directions in the plane of the ferrocement plate. Next please. That can be also simulated, and we can get actual stresses which are within the jali as well as surrounding the surrounding mortar. So we can actually get the values of stresses at the jali as well as near the mortar in tension and compression zone. And here also we could test it, and we could get the values that in mortar the stresses and the deformations. You can see here, if you can read the value here, the mortar strength it took is 29 Newton per mm square. So analytical as well as the experimental values, they match pretty well together. And the comment that we were taking, that we can enhance the property of ferrocement, that can be supported by the analytical study as well. Next, please. This shows the deflection pattern and the deflection zone here, and what happens exactly at the Zali, and what are the stresses induced, that can be depicted by different color codings, and each color represents the specific value of the stress at that point. And we observed that stress at the first crack was almost 28 Newton per mm square in the mortar, and as we go on increasing the loading, the crack started propagating towards the neutral axis, and we could get some ultimate value of load carrying capacity as well. Next, please. After testing the slabs, we also tested the actual members which were used as flexural members. So one of the flexural member that was casted was full scale beam, which was having cross section of this channel, and it was 3-meter beam. Complete 3-meter beam, full scale beam was tested under 4-point loading, and we could reach the tensile strength, flexural stress in the beam as almost 25 Newton per mm square for actual full scale testing of the beam. So this is assured value of the flexural stress, and we could also plot the load versus the deflection of this beam, and we could see that up to certain limit there is elastic behavior, and then also it is having the toughness beyond certain limit, and we can say that it is non-linear zone for this beam, but still we are reaching the ultimate value of the flexural tensile strength of 29 Newton per mm square for this beam. This is a typical setup for the ferrocement having 3 jalis. Now this was test where we had one more jali at the neutral axis. What was observed here, that the test results for the jalis, just 2 jalis without any jali at the neutral axis, behaved exactly in the same way as this sample where the jali was at neutral axis. This indicates that if the reinforcement is placed at the midsection, it does not really contribute into the flexural strength. So reinforcement must be away from the neutral axis. This is what we could remark on the testing of 2 different kinds of specimens, with jali not at the neutral axis and jali at the neutral axis. Next. This was the typical slab to deflection curve, load to deflection curve, and we could see that deflections can be easily measured, and we can correlate these deflections to the serviceability criteria later on. Some more experimentation is still required to arrive at the more details about the deflection behavior of the ferrocement. So you will see here that there is consistent deflection going on when we test it in flexure, and how to incorporate this deflection for the serviceability, that part still remains to be explored, and then only we will be able to comment on the serviceability criteria, and which is a function of the deflection of ferrocement component. Next, please. In the earlier one, just one slide earlier, you will see here that different sizes of jalis which were used, 20 by 20, 15 by 15, and 20 by 20, and 1.8 mm diameter. The values of stresses you can see here. The diameter of the steel wire, when it was 1.8 mm, it was giving almost 24 MPa as compared to when we reduce the diameter of steel reinforcement to 1.6. So diameter of steel does plays some role, but 1.8 is definitely giving a better results than 1.6 diameter of jali reinforcement. Next, please. Just out of curiosity, we did some analysis and some testing, actual testing. We casted one plate and which was tested with the loading of 500 kg as if there was car standing, kept on this plate, and we could simulate it using finite element analysis as well. So what happens to the fiber ferrocement plate if 500 kg car is kept on this plate? So we simulated it and we could get the load distribution pattern. Uh, Deflection almost gets 3 millimeter at the center midspan, and stresses, you will see stresses are also within the limits for this plate. Uh, the fun part why we did this was just an experiment, hypothetical experiment. What we wanted to find out whether this entire plate goes into sharing that load of 500 kg or not. So that is depicted by finite element analysis. So this is the portion which is shown in sky blue color. This is actually contributing. The zone is quite a big, almost 80% of the plate is contributing into sustaining the applied load. So this was the repercussion. This was actually the takeaway from this hypothetical study that we had done. Next, please. In compression, we also tested it for confined core compression, which we did it on circular and square cross sections with weld mesh, which was confined. We had taken circular column with ferrocement ferrocast tube and circular column confined with 2 layers of weld mesh, confinement without tube, there was no PCC inside, and square section also we tested, square column with ferrocast tube confinement. Uh, Next, please, I will show you what were the results that were obtained. So when circular confinement was done for the planes concrete, this is say type 1. So in different cases, we got the strength which was enhanced, 2 layers, 3 layers and 4 layers of reinforcement when we used it as a confinement. The stress which we got, compressive stress which we got was almost 40 MPa, with 3 layers 60 MPa and with 4 layers almost 64 MPa. So as you go on using this confinement, we can derive the advantage by virtue of confinement of the concrete, plain concrete, with the help of ferrocement. So load carrying capacity was enhanced from almost 30% to 110%. That was the enhancement just because of the jacketing. So jacketing is also one of the important way of use of ferrocement, which can give really good advantage if we utilize it properly. Next, please. Now, over the circular shape, what happens with the square shape? So, we tried to handle these two shapes separately. So, when we use the square shape, the values of stress were ranging from 46 to around 46 to 50 Newton per mm square, and load carrying capacity was increased, say, up to 20% only. So, circular shape is advantageous over the square shape. That was the reference that we have drawn here. Again, we come back to the previous philosophy that because of the hoop tension, the steel going into hoop tension, it imparts more load carrying capacity. While square section, square jacketing, it does not go really into hoop tension. That is why it is not increasing the load carrying capacity. Only hoop tension is giving you the enhanced load carrying capacity in compression. So that was the takeaway from testing under compression, confined compression. Next, please. Uh, Again, in behavior of shear, what we did, shear strength of ferrocement Approximately, it is taken as almost 30%, 30 to 35% of its tensile capacity. So equivalent bending strength, regardless of the type and the content of the mesh, mortar strength is the parameter which will influence the shear strength. That is what is given by various authors. Beams failing in shear will exhibit little sign of impending failure besides the formation of large number of diagonal cracks and a negligible plastic behavior after multiple cracking which are visibly seen on the surface. So we did some finite element analysis for this as well as physical testing, and what we observed here for the behavior in shear. Let's go to the next slide. So this was the sample where the lateral load was applied. So depicting a pure shear load applied here, and you will see that this entire zone, which is shown in this green color, this goes into pure shear, and pure shear stress is almost you can see here it is 7.5 Newton per mm square, and that confirms with whatever is one third stress value indicated by Anthony Naumann. So we can say that the range of shear capacity lies somewhere between one third to almost 1 point almost 33%. That's what we can say. Shear capacity is 33% of tensile capacity. Next, please. Another way of using the ferrocement, not only ferrocement as one single component, when we use it along with light gauge steel structure, it will have some added strength also. So what happens if we make a composite out of light gauge steel structure to the ferrocement panel? So if we consider the strength of single brick wall to be say 12.72 kilonewton for one unit section of the brick wall. So same dimension of LGS with one ferro panel, it will give almost 35 kilonewton of load, flexural capacity. And if there are two panels along with the LGS, it will enhance to the fold of 140. So because of create a sandwich section, so two panels into one LGS section, multifolds we can enhance its capacity, flexural capacity. This could be seen when we made a composite out of light gauge steel panel. Some more research is still going on along with this combination of composite, LGS and ferro panels, and how we separate the two panels of 18 mm thickness, and how much is the gap between the two panels, and how that gap will affect the flexural load carrying capacity. That research is still going on. Yeah, here I want to present the case study, because the way the ferrocement can be used is the inherent ferrocement component itself. Ferrocement in multiple forms, like it should be used with LGS section or ferrocement component, structural components, the way you use it. So I am presenting just one case study here, where the load bearing ferrocement house, which is just one room kitchen and a veranda, small unit, using ferrocement panel walls and ferrocement slab, and the construction time was 5 days. Next, please. This is a typical elevation, where this is a kitchen, this is a hall, and this is the outer portion veranda, and typical dimensions and the sectional drawing is given here. I borrowed this from Purandare sir because he has actually constructed this, and I felt that this way we can use the pure ferrocement components as structural units. Next, please.
Are these precast panels, ma'am?
Yes, all precast. That's what I'm showing.
Okay.
You will see in this first day of the construction, the wall up to plinth, which was constructed within 6 hours. Next, please. This is the foundation which was made ready on the first day, and the bolts are inserted here so that we can erect the wall panels. along with these bolts. Next, please. Now, along the plinth which is made, we can simply erect these wall panels here by using Hydra. And you can use the stakes very easily. And very few number of labor are required to erect this. Next, please. Next, please. And then when you keep the two wall panels adjacent to each other, there is a sealant which can be used to seal the two adjacent panels. On third day, you can raise it up to this much. All the wall sections, opening sections, everything can be erected. This is the slab, ferro slab. You can see this part is also precast ferro cement slab. So they are like inverted channels used as ferro cement slabs. And on the fifth day, the entire top portion is completed. And we can say that structurally we can raise this much of structure within 5 days just by erecting various precast components. And you can see the finish as well. This is completely unfinished structure. For the first time, I am trying to assemble all these things for the experts who are not from academic area. So I'm bit not sure about what exactly will appeal to the audience.
This your presentation has certainly increased the confidence about the strength, which is whether it is as per designed or not, what are the assumptions, and whether it is behaving like that, and also about the material behavioral properties. So these are the important issues where one should keep in his mind while constructing in ferro cement. Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. I will begin with questions from myself. Just 3 points in quickly I will go through. The first point is I think there were some discussions about this filling of mortar while doing construction. Two ways are there. One is this regular plaster, which we have just mentioned, but again, let us correct it as a press fill mortar. So I think a press fill would be a proper word, or the best word actually, which is giving the exact meaning as a definition, is the impregnation of mortar. But in a simplified way, we can always call it as a press fill mortar. I think everybody will agree. Or maybe
Yes.
suggest a even better word for that. This is
We
one.
should put in our vocabulary, new vocabulary that we are making for ferro cement.
Certainly. So that will be a good thing to do. Another point which was mentioned by you is about fly ash. So I think we can throw more light on that. We can do more experiments also. If the cement can be replaced up to the 35% with the fly ash without compromising the strengths and the workability, then it's a huge benefit we will be getting. And certainly we should promote this thing. The third and the last point, which I just want to share, or rather it's a kind of question. At the end, you showed some slides about the actual construction of a home with precast panels. So far, the thinking in general mind was about the ferro cement construction cast in situ. Even all the testing procedures which you just explained were as a lab experiments, but for the that procedure keeping in mind. When we come to the precasting, then the jointing, the sealing, and its structural behavior differs totally. And I think there is still scope for doing more research, more testing for the precast elements and the structure as a whole combined. So it is better to keep two things separately or parallelly, we can say, so that its structural behavior and even some properties may also differ, and that way we should make more research in those fields. So with
In
this,
this regard, I would like to share with you,
yes, please.
though it is too early to express this, but live testing of full scale models, that is what we are trying to do, and we are trying to do the simulation as
Yeah.
well, because as you rightly said, that when we combine these components together, how really they behave, this is very important to be studied, and there lies a research area altogether, and we are aiming at that definitely. Dr. Amrut Joshi sir will throw some light on upon this, because we have already started in those directions.
Right, right. Okay. It's good area. I think last few presentations we have seen the construction of a dam using ferrocement. In that, a different theory was used, keeping the boxes as the vertical and horizontal fins, and the combined effect would have been a different, which was just simply designing a simple reef. Again, there were some other constructions done by our renowned expert, Mr. A.K. Jain sir. He is also now developing some box type new design. Dr. Divekar is also working on that with some box type combined structural behavior thing. And with this, he is developing a new theory. So many new evolvements are coming, and always welcome to all. So I think we will have some experts' comments.
Precast ferrocement and cast in situ ferrocement have two different fields. So the work presented is about precasting. So there are number of comments, but I cannot cover them all of them within 2 minutes. So I will put them in my remarks, that comments that are to be made. I will put them in there.
Okay, maybe you can put it on comment box, or even you can
Yeah.
write
I
it
will be
down
putting it on that.
by
Yes, that
mail.
is better. That is
We can
better.
have detailed discussion over that. But just if it is to be said in few points, highlighting some features, that will be welcome, sir.
Now main thing is we are
Hmm.
testing a composite.
Right.
In RCC, steel and concrete share the load separately. That is why their strengths, if they are measured, they will be sufficient to design. In this case, we are using a composite. That means the meshes and mortar together with bond between them are sharing the load. That is why the tensile strength is increasing and other properties are increasing. So that bond must be measured, and nowhere up till now, not a single researcher has connected all his observations to the specific surface, which is a measure of bond. And that is what we are trying to do in our analysis, that we are trying to correlate everything, compression strength, tensile strength, and all the other strengths and the behavior with specific surface. How much is the bonded area and what is the contribution of bond? That is what is very important, and that is what is expected from the academicians. Nobody has looked into it. That is what is the difficulty. You should go in
Yes.
for specifying every property, compression strength, tensile strength in the case of specific surface. All of them, now you said that 2 layers are used, 3 layers are used. That means you are using volume fraction of steel. But those 2 layers, they are also adding to the specific surface, and that is what is important. That is should be
Yes.
done.
Very important point Dr. Divekar sir has raised. We will keep it in mind and make more research on that. And now I will go to
One point which I want to raise is that when I went through the paper which was sent to me earlier,
yeah.
she has said that expanded mesh is not advisable in ferrocement.
Hmm.
Mr. Naman has very clearly pointed out that it is good for ferrocement. Okay,
Okay. In what way?
ferrocement. He talks about expanded mesh which is available in America,
Mhm.
and he has said that it is good for ferrocement. I don't want to expand on this, but I can quote if you want, what he has said. The
Mhm.
second point which I want to make is about chicken mesh.
Mhm.
She says if you are not using hand plastering and you are casting ferrocement,
Mhm.
then you should not use chicken mesh. Right from the first day in 1985, I have been using chicken mesh. I have never hand plastered. Always from 1985, I am doing casting using vibrators, and I'm always using chicken meshes. Of course, I'm not using 26 gauge or 28 gauge. I'm using 22 gauge, and that too machine made, not handmade. If it is hand woven, they are loose. If they are machine made, they are tight. So there is no harm in using a chicken mesh unless, I mean, if you use a proper size and properly made chicken mesh. That is the second point I wanted to make. Then she was talking about using of grade 2 of sand, and she was also saying that we can add 35% of fly ash. The fly ash becomes a part of cement, or does it become a part of sand?
Cement.
It is not part of sand.
No, no, it is replacement to cement.
It is a replacement to cement. Okay. Uh, in one place, your literature says the design of makes the first line reads as 1.25 to 1.5. I think that 5 is wrong. Somewhere it cannot be 2.5 to 5. It has to be 2.5 to 3.5 maximum. Or you can't go to 1:5 ratio in ferrocement. I don't see that feasible. I'm not saying that. It may be a typographical error. Please correct that.
Okay.
Then you have talked about temperature while mixing the concrete. I want to know what is the optimum temperature that you have in mind.
Work needs to be done for the temperature, because nobody has to for
You have mentioned that temperature is a very crucial factor while mixing the concrete. Before making that statement, you have to give us a range of temperature which should be used.
soon we will come up with that, because quantitatively I have to
Unless
quote the values.
without figures, don't say that temperature. I mean, higher temperature is good or lower temperature is good. You are not mentioning anything. You are just saying temperature is not good. That does not give us any idea of what you are trying to say.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but
Need to study more on this temperature issue.
No,
right.
if you give me a minute, when my student he worked in Tamil Nadu over one of the project for his dissertation itself, he was working on in Tamil Nadu. There in hot temperature, when he started his casting, there were the difficulties when he worked with the workability of the mortar, and when he actually did his research work in Pune, that temperature difference. But to state in a concrete way, I have to come up with the quantities with you. So I think soon I will come back to you for that.
Please do that. Please do that. Third point is somewhere you have mentioned plastic spacers.
Yeah.
Or have you made plastic spacers?
Yes, yes.
Can you show that to us?
Right now it is not there, but I will send you
Next
the
time.
picture.
Next time. No, next time.
Yes,
Maybe
yes, sure.
next meet. Even if somebody else is speaking, you can just take 1 second and show us
Of course.
shape of that plastic
of course.
spacer.
Yes.
Because making a 3 mm and 4 mm spacer is a very specialized job. I was making plastic spacers in 1992, and I had to get a special die made and things like that. I mean, I have done it, so therefore I am more interested in knowing how
Yes.
you did it, what was the shape of your plastic spacer.
Okay.
And then I want to know, how did you arrive at the figure of 5 mm radius of bond width?
It's a finite element simulation which I did.
Yes.
I will send you the snaps separately to enter all the members.
How does the bond change from the face of the rod to the free end of 5 mm? Is it a parabola? Is it a straight line? And your one figure talks about 4 mm, not 5 mm. There is a confusion.
4
have one
mm
figure
or 5
here.
mm, it depends upon what is the grade of mortar. Depending upon grade of
Right.
mortar.
You have not shared that anywhere.
Yes, yes.
Your literature is not silent on that issue.
To reduce the slides, actually, I reduced that.
But
How that 5
you
mm we got it from finite element analysis. I eliminated that slide, but
Right.
separately I can send it to you.
please do some experimental work also, and let us try to get that 5 mm or 4 mm or 3 mm.
Yes.
Okay.
I would request that.
Yeah.
Sure, sure.
I think. And what was the thickness of the plate which we have used?
18 millimeters.
18 millimeter, and the size was 200 by 100.
Yeah.
Plate size was 200 by 100.
Yes, yes.
That means your slenderness ratio for the plate was less than 10.
16. It was
100,
16, not 200 by 10. The slenderness ratio was 16.
No, if the length is 200 and the width
It's
is
not 200,
100,
sir. I forgot the dimension of plate. The
it is
slenderness
written in
ratio is
it is
16.
written in your document that it is 200.
I'll check it once again because slenderness ratio is
Please,
16.
please check that.
Yes.
That is what I am trying to say. It will not, like your slab, you have a 200 mm slab with a thickness of 27.6 mm thickness. That means your slab also has a ratio of slenderness ratio of 1:8. Will it behave as a slab?
It's 9 o'clock.
Or will it behave as a beam? I'm sorry, I am raising very foolish questions.
No, I think numbers are getting jumbled up, mixed together.
There is diagram. There is a diagram in your where 3 meshes have been shown. Where the length of this slab is 200 and the thickness is 27.6 mm. That means your slenderness ratio is less than 8. I don't think it will behave as a slab.
No, I think I should give you complete table of each component and its dimension.
Yes, please do that. Please do that.
Yes.
Please don't shorten your presentation so that it becomes
Yes.
Yeah.
without any meaning.
Yes.
Yes, yes. The subject is not to be cut down or not to be shortened.
Right.
And
See, I'm a teacher. I can go on
I know
talking for hours
I
together.
know, but you have to give the complete picture to the student.
Yeah.
Yes. But for today, please forgive.
I'm sorry, but that is.
But for today, please forgive her because it is not her fault. It is on the organizers that we have limited our time.
So you should not take up a subject which cannot be covered in that time, because you are doing a great injustice to the subject.
Yes.
I'm sorry again.
Yes, we do agree, sir. Yes, sir. Have you finished your points?
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Dr. Jain, sir. Very studiously, he has shown some points which need some more, maybe kind of research or some clarification, and that will certainly improve our this quality and reliability of the research. So we can take it that way, and we'll certainly share the outcomes of all this. Now, can I have a few minutes from Mr. Milind? He's a good designer and knows has worked himself on the properties of the cement. Your comments, Milind, please.
No, basically, I would not like to rob Dr. Mridula and her team of what work she has done, but the direction is very important, and I am a little confused and surprised as to why the parameter like specific surface was not looked at all, even where Naman talks of it, Balguru talks of it, Shah talks of it, and the specific surface has been so well defined that the entire ferrocement philosophy revolves and evolves around specific surface, and the volume fraction is just a secondary contribution to the composite. So it is so critical that up to a certain point of the specific surface, for example, 1 centimeter square by centimeter cube, it behaves like RCC. And the moment you go above 1 centimeter square by 1 centimeter cube, then it starts behaving like a homogeneous composite. Till then, it behaves like a heterogeneous composite. That is, A plus B is equal to C. So A is independent. That is the compressive strength of a beam above the neutral axis in RCC is independent. It gives the strength. The tensile strength is negligible, neglected. So steel takes the tension, and there is a couple formation. So fundamentally, I'm surprised as to why the specific surface was not looked upon. But having said that, I will say that everything evolves and revolves, as I told, on the specific surface. But indirectly, what they have done, very fortunately, is they have used very small gauge sizes, and they have used the spacing of the weld meshes so small that is given in ACI, that you should not increase 25 by 25 millimeters. And by doing that, indirectly, they have enhanced the specific surface. So probably indirectly, they have done what is done, but they have not correlated it to specific surface. So one of the most important parameters, rather the heart of the system is in the specific surface. The volume fraction contribution is very low. So at what point will you call it RCC, and at what point will you call it FCC? So this is a very, very important thing. And I think maybe someone will work on how to correlate it with specific surface, though it has been done already. You have to do some reverse engineering and come back to that specific surface and what was done and what was the specific surface at that time, what was done. So we will, with the same data that is available, we can go backwards, do some reverse engineering and come up with the specific surface and connect it to the work done. And then
Sure.
it really would make a lot of sense.
Sure, sir.
Yes, thank you, Milind. He is also reiterating along with Dr. Divekar sir that the specific area is the focus point which should be in addition to the other researchers who are doing on ferrocement. The last one but not the least, we would like to hear from Mr. Padmanabh Lele. He is also having expertise in designing and also about the properties. Mr. Leleji, please.
My question is, I work on the site basically. How to test the site, test the ferrocement at site conditions? We have done so many works. How to test it at site? That is my question. Some light should be shared on this topic. And whatever she has done and mentioned, it is basically in the lab. And lab and site should be correlated. That is the most important thing because we are working on the site and so many people are working. Lot of works are going on, and that thing should be there. That whatever is done in the site should be tested by lab people, and they should give the suggestions what should be done, what should not be done. That will improve the quality, overall quality.
Yes, this is a very important point. At the last, Mr. Lele has suggested.
Can I answer that question, Mr. Pawar?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
I do this part which Mr. Lele has said. Whenever I do a construction at site, I do the testing, and if I am given a chance, I can present those testing procedures and testing methodologies and the results and the comparison in the lab with the lab values. But that is when and if I am given a chance.
Definitely, sir.
That's,
I would like to hear from you, sir.
yeah.
I have some small things to know actually. Can I?
I am coming to you only. Yes, please, Mr. Mohammed Sadiq.
Oh, okay, thank you. Actually, it's a very nice presentation and elaborate. So, but I have just small questions. One thing, why not the riverbed sand? Because you use sand, the crushed sand. Why not riverbed? As you say, riverbed is not allowed. What's the meaning? Please unmute.
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. In India, in Maharashtra, in many places, use of river sand is banned.
Okay,
It is costly also.
Oh, I thought, is there any technical reason? No, it's okay.
No.
Then, another thing is, as actually earlier it is pointed out, the proportion of sand and cement is as you in your literature 1 is to 2.5 to 5. I think the very definition of this ferrocement is a rich mortar. So if you mix 1 is to 5, I think so we can't say the rich mortar. So, and even we here follow only one ratio 1 is to 2. We don't go beyond 2. So I think 1 is to 5 is a bit lean mortar. Another issue is you are adding 30% fly ash. You are using cement type 1 because here we use
Ordinary Portland cement.
Okay, type 1. So here in Bangladesh, we use type 2 cement. So type 2 cement already about 25% fly ash mix. So we should not mix more fly ash with type 2 cement. Okay.
Okay.
And another issue is you have said the hexagonal expanded metal wire mesh is not actually good for us, but actually I find is a bit difficult for me to understand. Our idea is not bad because if it is square mesh, then in a single cross sections you will not find any actually along the space you will not find there are some section you will not find any reinforcement, but if it is hexagonal, then you will find lot of actually reinforcement across that cross sections. And if it is is 30 or 35 grade concrete and the wire mesh is maybe 45 degree, then it's very difficult to actually become the straight of this hexagonal wire mesh, but the force component will resolve in two ways. That way, so what's the harm actually? In my opinion, maybe I am wrong. I find nothing wrong to use this hexagonal expanded wire mesh in the. That's my just feelings.
Okay. Thank you, Sadiq.
Sir, one point, sir.
I think time is
Yeah, one small point.
just by some. Yes, Milind?
One very small point, with quick point
Yeah.
is
Okay.
these
Go ahead.
hexagonal meshes have to be pre-tightened. That is the most important criteria. You can't just use an hexagonal mesh and leave it as it is available through the rolls. And this is some form of pre-stressing is made available actually by tightening the hexagonal meshes in all the four directions. And then only you can use them for press and fill method, and it will give very good results.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for clarification. As Dr. Jain has rightly pointed out that this subject itself is not a confined one. A whole day, one-day seminar can also be arranged and discussed in more detail with all the technicalities and all these things. But in our Fero Talk, with a limited time, we just try to highlight what they have done academically, kind of academic research, and what is going on here and what are the outcomes. So just to introduce these topics to all the experts, this was the motto. Again, I would like to congratulate Dr. Mridula Kulkarni for the excellent presentation, the work she is going on, and from the experts we gather, or the takeaway we can just list that so many areas are still there. This is not complete. The research must go on. There is tremendous scope in the various points raised, like the specific surfaces, the expanded mesh point, the chicken meshes, whether to be used or not to be used, as like the central mesh at the neutral axis, as you have also mentioned in the presentation. So on that point also, the spacers, the queries were there from that, and so many other, even the testing on sites, the point raised by Mr. Lele, the NDT, if it is possible or not, then the artificial sand and its usefulness, the pozzolanic cements which we use in India. So many areas are there for the research. But as Dr. Kulkarni has rightly pointed out initially, that this is academic research. So practically there may be some differences, maybe some variations. We always try to correlate with this, but we certainly know that with the academic research only, and with its working as a backbone, we are getting confident about the playing with the ferrocement. So thank you very much to all, and looking forward for more interesting lectures in future series, the part 2 of this quality control and the testing, and similar presentations in continuation on various subjects. So good night to all, and thank you very much for joining. Thank you.
I also thank all the members. Your critical comments are going to be guidelines for us, and our role is to create the knowledge. We will keep on doing it. Please keep guiding.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.